Welcome to my YouTube channel, China Explained. In this channel, you will find Chinese social, economic, and political phenomena explained to you in a nutshell. Nowadays, we cannot afford to overlook China, given its growing prominence on the global stage. What happens in China can often impact our lives, so it's important to stay informed about what's going on in the country. This is why I created this channel, to provide straightforward explanations of complex topics relating to China. In each video, I will focus on one particular aspect of China and explain it in simple terms. Through this channel, you will better understand China and its importance today. Now, let's dive into today's topic.
When Xi Jinping introduced the zero-COVID policy in China in February 2020, no one could predict how far he would go to implement his policy. It led to shutting down schools, businesses, and other public places to contain the spread of the virus. Xi Jinping's actions in China have gone so far that they sent shockwaves through the Chinese and world economies. Many analysts and economists predicted that the policy would have disastrous consequences. This video will explore how Xi's policy has impacted China and the world's economies. The first question we ask is whether Xi's zero-COVID policy works. It is difficult to argue that Xi's zero-COVID policy works in China. China has managed to keep its infection rate extremely low at the earlier stages of the pandemic, if the data reported from China was accurate. However, according to Worldometer, while the rest of the world is seeing a decline in COVID patients in 2022, China has seen a rise in numbers since March 2022, even though Xi implemented the super strict and inhuman zero-COVID policy in China. Since March in China, the rise in COVID cases is evidence that Xi's zero-COVID policy does not work well. The second question is, what are the impacts of the zero-COVID policy on China's economy and Chinese people? The strict and brutal implementation of the zero-COVID policy led to a nationwide lockdown and the establishment of strict travel restrictions. Obviously, this policy came at a significant cost to the Chinese people. The Chinese economy was dragged down the slope significantly with this prolonged zero-COVID policy. Here are some of the main impacts on Chinese people's lives. Number 1, the lockdown is the perfect storm for many people, as they cannot earn an income or livelihood. The prolonged strict state enforced by government officials only adds fuel to the flames while not providing any solutions. Number 2, some Chinese people were subjected to inhuman treatment, such as being forced to live in cramped and unsanitary conditions, lack of food supply, and local government officials using force against people. Number 3, the zero-COVID policy also had a chilling effect on freedom of expression, as voices of dissent were quickly silenced. For example, on October 13, 2022, a protester hung banners from Sitong Bridge that denounced Xi Jinping for his dictatorial rule, human rights violations, and censorship regime. The banners also called for an end to his leadership for life, and the implementation of a zero-COVID policy. To make his message even more powerful, the protester then burned tires on the bridge to create a plume of black smoke that could be seen. The protester was arrested immediately. Number 4, many sectors of the economy have suffered, especially the housing market. The most notable case was the collapse of Everbright, a prominent real estate developer in China. The housing crisis hit people hard in China, as many had invested their life savings in property. The housing market in China is still in a state of decline. Number 5, Chinese businesses are declining. On the one hand, the lockdowns resulted in a sharp decline in demand for certain goods and services due to decreased consumer spending. This led to significant losses for many businesses as they struggled to stay afloat while following guidelines put forth by the government. Number 6, the social risks have increased sharply in China. With businesses closing their doors, hundreds of thousands of people have been left without jobs or with much lower wages than before. This has caused immense economic disparity between different parts of the country and different classes of people. The unemployment rate for college graduates is exceptionally high, which could lead to social unrest if not addressed quickly. The third question is where China's economy is leading under Xi Jinping's zero-COVID policy. The direction that China is heading is very alarming. Here are some highlights. Number 1. China is shifting from export economy to domestic consumer-driven economy. It's no secret that China has been an export powerhouse for the last few decades, but that could be changing. After months of zero-COVID policy and successful containment of the virus, China is shifting from exports to a consumer-driven economy. This shift is not easy with the continuous decline of the overall retail sector, as reported by the Statistics Bureau of China. Number 2. Foreign investors are leaving China. Will they come back soon, or will they move their factories permanently to other countries, such as India? With the recent clash of Foxconn workers, high-tech companies are speeding up to move out of China. According to the New York Times, Apple and Google are moving to shift production away from China. Reports have revealed that a small portion of Apple's latest iPhones will be made in India, while Google's newest Pixel phone production is being done in Vietnam. Number 3. China is heading toward the debt crisis. China currently has an unsustainable level of debt, estimated at over 300% of GDP, which means that the government will have difficulty finding funds to invest in rebuilding the economy after COVID-19. Furthermore, much of this debt was taken on during Xi Jinping's tenure, which means that his government has yet another obstacle to overcome if it wants to rebuild the post-COVID economy, without defaulting on its loans or causing further economic instability. When the Chinese government faced intense social turmoil, it became more difficult to rebuild the economy. Man-made human disasters by the harsh implementation of zero-COVID policy have been played out one after another, including a fire that left 10 people dead in Xinjiang province last week, as rescue teams could not help them timely due to the harsh lockdown conditions. Social dissatisfaction is building up, as Chinese people have already felt frustrated over low wages and lack of opportunities for employment or education abroad like other citizens do worldwide. The issue at hand requires solutions such as repairing the damage done by past policies while avoiding repeating mistakes. The fourth question is, how will the rest of the world be affected by China's zero-COVID policy? Here are some bullet points on the impacts of the world economy by China's zero-tolerance policy. Number 1. Supply chain disruption. The effects of China's economic growth are felt most acutely through supply chain disruption. Many countries rely heavily on goods from China for their manufacturing and retail industries, mainly consumer electronics and clothing items. If China's economy slows down or stagnates, so too will production and sales in these industries, which could lead to job losses and lower wages in those countries as well. Additionally, production delays could lead to higher consumer prices, due to increased demand for goods. Number 2. Other economies are trying to reduce their reliance on China. China is one of the largest trading partners, with many countries worldwide, including Japan and South Korea. This means that if there are changes in China's economic growth rate, it could also impact other economies. For example, if Chinese exports decrease due to economic stagnation, this could cause problems for other exporting countries that rely heavily on Chinese markets for their goods. Furthermore, currency fluctuations between countries can also have an effect. If China's currency weakens compared to other currencies, such as USD or GBP, then this could lead to higher costs for imports from those countries. Any changes in China's economic disaster can have ripple effects across global markets and economies. From supply chain disruption, leading to job losses, and price increases for consumers to currency fluctuations, leading to higher import costs, there are a host of potential impacts that should be considered when evaluating how changes in Chinese economic growth may affect other nations around the world. As we continue through this period of uncertainty following 3 years of lockdown in China, we must remain mindful of how China's zero-COVID policy goes and adjust the economic relations with China. The final question is what lessons we can learn from Xi Jinping's zero-COVID policy. There are many lessons we can learn from China's brutal zero-COVID policy. But here we want to highlight the most important one we see, The role of technology in China's pandemic management may be used in surveillance. To manage the outbreak, Xi Jinping relied heavily on big data and technology-driven solutions. The government used automated facial recognition technology to track individuals who may have come into contact with infected patients. Chinese citizens were required to install tracking applications on their phones so that authorities could monitor their movements at all times. They raised serious questions about privacy rights and civil liberties in China. It was reported that the technology was used not only to control the pandemic spread, it was also used to control people's freedom for political control. If you have read George Orwell's 1984, you may feel just like me. Our human freedom can be grossly eroded if the government starts using medical tests, phone apps, and the color of your codes to control your freedom of speech, freedom of movement, and freedom to make medical decisions related to your own body and health. Xi Jinping has given the world an extensive showcase of how far a tyrant government can go to invade human dignity, freedom, and happiness with the assistance of today's technology. We will continue to observe the development of zero-COVID policy and its impacts and update you with my analysis. If you like my content and would like to continue to get updates on China, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel so that you won't miss my new videos in the future. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time.